to the kitzur on page 9. And this time we are going to read the kitzur. First of all, the kitzur is short, and then also because it took such a long time to get there, so this will kind of summarize it. The question we're dealing with is still, what is the phenomenon of tzimtzum as applied to oir? I don't know to what extent we realize the significance of this question. I repeated it many times. Repeating is not sufficient. This is something which one has to sense in his own intelligence, in his Sechel. Notice the Rebbe, in a certain sense, equates Sechel with Neshama. Did you see that? Did this give you a little tremble?
One has to do with another.
Yeah, what's
what?
the equivalency here?
One has to do with which?
I understand. You focus our attention on the question, like what tzimtzum has to do with, as tzimtzum applies to or, and then you brought this what the others equates neshama with the sechel. So what these two things have to do one with another?
Sechel is oir.
I'm sorry. So isn't it that oil carries the, like you call it, impact of the atom, of the presence of the atom? So what is the surprise that Sechel, being oil of the neshama, is so closely related?
Not a surprise at all. In words, everything fits. All of a sudden it is a surprise, huh?
So would you say that one using one's sechel is allowing the neshama to express itself?
You put it this way, there are many different ways. Yes. The answer is yes. Sechel itself is an expression of the Neshama.
But you're trying to bring our attention to something more than that. And what is that?
I would like to bring that without a question. Understand the implication? The whole Inyan that Sechel is neshama. It's a phenomenal statement, which means that just as sunlight, if you say sunlight flows from the sun because the sun is etzem heating, it flows because it reflects the sun is. Seichel, likewise, flows from the neshama because it flows from the neshama. In other words, it is not solicited from the neshama. The presence of the neshama brings the Oyer Seichel. The impact of the presence of the neshama is Seichel. This is a very challenging statement, concept for us here, on account of the fact that the so to speak, the Sechel kitzur, all the onslaught on the neshama have usurped.
What is the challenging statement, Rabbi Paltiel?
Can you repeat that, please?
That Sechel is the neshama.
Okay.
Seichel flows from the neshama the same way as light flows from the neshama, from the sun. It's not solicited.
I'm sorry. So is it difficulty here because the way we perceive Sechel is like something defined, like we have our own way to look at it, and so that's kind of contradicts with.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is something which always confuses us. We used to think of Sechel, what's called Sechel kitzur. Sechel Bahami, proven Sechel. Remember this statement I said, if you have to prove it, then you're blind. As we said many times, so I repeat it, that it's appropriate to say, I know there's a table here because I touched it. Prove that it's there. It's not appropriate to say, I know the table's here because I see it. Why not?
So it's not appropriate to say that it's there because you see.
This is the first time you hear that?
No, I'm not sure.
All right, let's go. Okay, we're going into the kitzur. Eich yitzdak, how can be justified? Moshel ha'oisiyos, the moshel from oisiyos, al shorosh ha'oiris. He's speaking of shorosh ha'oiris, of the roots of the oiris. Since that no matter what happens with oir, it remains oir. And what happened? And what does it mean? It remains oir. It remains reflective of the etzem. It's never a separate things. However, the explanation, the point is, that in oiros there is also pnimius, the oil in the side of the oil which is connected to the source, and chitzonius, that part of that side of the oil that manifests outside. Pnimius chitzonius. Void, and then furthermore, sheheim bechinas shemos. The oilers also have the union of shemos, names, and we discussed the union from shame really extensively in the past week or so, 2 weeks. The Ba'alois or Roitzon, and we said Ba'alois or Roitzon, that when there was Alois or Roitzon, when the Roitzon to create rose up, surfaced, Hu bechinas shemos loshen rabim. Then there is a union from shemos loshen rabim, which means many names. First, before there is Shem, one name. Who Shmoy? This is the Pnimius, one name that incorporates all the oilers. And then there is Shemos that already divides the oilers individually. And that, when the oilers are divided into individual oilers, it's a much lesser oil, much lesser impact from the etzim than when it is incorporated in one name. Now, Moshe, I'm showing him a galore, but I don't want to say. I hope we think in this Moshe. A home has chairs and tables and beds and bookcases and picture frames, etc., etc., etc. Each one of these is a separate unit, has a separate name, a separate place. Altogether, it's called a home. We said many times, a home automatically brings out all of these things. That concept of home is a much higher element of oil than when they are identified individually. I think we can see that, right? We can relate to this. However, there is further insight necessary. The K'moi HaMoshel HaMal AyinBase Mitivas Baruch. Now, just as in the Moshel, as we mentioned before, the original Moshel, that we have the word Baruch, and we pointed out that the word Baruch has a very broad inference, Sechel. Then when you take the letter Beis out of that word, you have now reduced the oil that it represents. Just as in that moshel of the AyinBase, B'tivus Baruch, it's conceivable that Yesh Levayer Ho'inyan Api Moshel Acher. But actually, this union can be also explained Api Moshel Acher on the basis of a different moshel. Similar to it, but it's a different Moshe. And what the point of this, we shall see. And with that, Moshe will be better understood. How does it be? How does it justify to say that when they're all united together, yesh bahem oir el yoim. Then there is a superior oir when they're all together. So even though the mashal of Baruch, the word Baruch is a proper mashal, but there's another approach to this concept. That approach will explain better this Inyan, how together, all the koiches are together, that brings out a higher oil. The who, and what is this other mashal that will expose this Inyan? You all comfortable here? You want to switch on the other air conditioners? Find the little smitchik on the clock. Got it. Who and it is. What is this other motion that will help us understand how when all the aspects are united together, it's a higher oil. The hine al derech moshel called in sichli. As for example, every principle of Sechel, its obvious that it possesses many yonim shabahem muvon ha'in sichli, through which the yin sichli becomes understandable. This is how the Sechel becomes muvon. Muvon means understood. The emphasis over here is on the bino aspect rather than the chokhmah aspect. Muvon is understood because you're able to identify many aspects, and that puts everything in perspective and makes sense. How come you have this inyan because of all these various details? Which is saying, Masha Sechel mischalek liprotim rabim. The fact that the Sechel subdivides into many details. Ukmeishin is boilil perek daled, as we explained earlier, she'i efsher le'inyan sichli, that it's not possible for an inyan sichli of a Sechel concept, shaloyi yeboy protim, that it should not contain details. Shebachol elo haprotim, where vaya, and as a result of all these details, muvan ha-Sechel, the Sechel becomes understood. We'll go one more line and then perhaps we'll try to examine where we're going. As a result of all the protim, the Sechel becomes understood. Bohem, and within all of these protim, Yesh protim, there are amongst them such details that are more deeper and more involved in the source, in the essence, protim acherim than other details. Which are in the category of kitzur. Okay. This goes into a very involved and a deep unit, but we'll keep abreast with it. We have a very excellent exposition of this principle as a starting point. A home and all the amenities of a home.
Could you just touch on the inside again? What was presented inside before you go to the mashal? Just what the Rebbe Risham just.
The Rebbe is saying that in every Sechel there are protim, and by this protim the Sechel becomes understood. Human Sechel, the Kelim becomes understood. I said we have an excellent exposition of this statement. We said a home, and everybody understands what a home is. The minute we say Odom she'ein Beis any Odom, we respond to it. We understand. And then we go further and we start examining the home. This initial understanding, initial recognition of this statement, Odom she'ein Beis any Odom, we do not really have a grasp on it. We see it. We recognize its truth. This is like the Chochmah perspective. We all understand that a homeless person is lacking the sense of a human life. There are homeless people, you pass by in the park, they're covered with all kinds of different plastic covers, and they create all kinds of things. They sit on the park benches, and all their possessions are protruding from all over the place. And they can sit there and sing. And they're very talented. Can you imagine somebody singing on a park bench that this is his home? Is he experiencing, so to speak, a human presence? Any other? There's no real basis to his being. But he sings just like a bird can sing. Like a dog can bark. So when we realize, I'm sure everybody senses, this thing to be mentioned on top. Odom she'ein Beis any Odom. And we say, oh, a homeless person is lacking the human sense of being. We immediately respond to that. Yet, even though we respond to it, we don't have a real grasp. What's this about? What makes a home a home? Why does a home make a human being? When we delve into this concept, and we begin to identify the content of this concept, the protein, then we have a grasp, not only a concept, but a grasp of the This is what the Rebbe is talking about, that when you have protein, through the protein you have havana, you move on, you grasp, you fully understand what you're talking about. You're not merely reflecting a kind of a sense, of a vision, which is higher than understanding. It's coming, so this is something which emanates directly from the Neshama. Like we said many times, this Inyan Odom Shein Beis in Odom is rooted in the very mission of the Neshama in the world. It's nothing to do with its experience, it's the very reality of its mission in the world. Then when we come down, we say, let's understand what does a house, what does a home do? How does it contribute to his being Adam? Then we realize that when a person is sitting and learning in a book, and he has a cup of water at the same time, and he has to have a book in front of him, the cup of water in front of him, and a watch, and all of these things, and he has to hold the watch in his hand like this, and the cup of water in his, and the book. This is not the way to learn. The world is not then serving him. He lives in a vacuum. You understand that? He is dependent totally on his own devices. Yes, he can hold the watch, hang it up on his finger. He can hold the Sechel. He can stand on his feet. But he's not really supported by his environment at all. When it comes down to all the protein in a home, we said, as soon as you have a home, immediately all the amenities of a home begin to surface. First the practical things, the tables and chairs, and then the picture on the wall, which is also a human experience. That's when you begin to understand, yes, the home really, I understand how home makes a human being. How without a home, ain't a yod. Not I sense it, but I understand it. When this, in other words, when the initial thought is broken down and you show what's contained therein, the protein, that's when it comes to Havana, that's when you understand. inside now?
Page 2.
We are on the second paragraph there, 5 lines from the bottom. What we give is both protein. In every sechel there are protein. It's not possible that a sechel should not have any protein. Take a look. Why is it compelling that it has protein? Sechel, by definition, has protein. Because the Sechel brings out the concept of Vedas and Shalom, brings it out into the open, into the world. And therefore it has to have protein. A Beis, a home, is not a single entity. It consists of many things. To start with, there's a floor, windows, walls, and roof. And then how you use this home. In Sechel, it's not possible that it should be without protein. And this protein, this is what enables the Sechel to be understood, not just sensed, but understood.
Hold on a second. You're saying that you just said that Sechel brings something from the neshama into the world, and because it brings it into the world, therefore it must must have
Since
details.
it brings it into the world, it expands into the world. It has to be in protein, it has to be the details there.
It cannot bring life to one detail, one thing, one detail. You say.
That's right.
I don't understand.
A car. You know what a car is? It has a wheel. You know what a car is? It moves.
Is it the same thing to say that in the world there is no meaningful thing that's not comprised from many different parts or whatever?
You make me a table without just one single entity.
No, I'm not arguing that.
No, I'm not arguing. I'm explaining it to you. This is what it means. It comes into the world. It's a seichel. Seichel means it comes into gilui, into an express state. Not on the neshama level, but on the presence of the world.
He's saying it originates from a singular seichel,
Definitely.
but yet it shows itself by means of a whole number of proteins.
That's right. Inherent in that initial seichel, there are proteins. Now these proteins have to surface. And as the protein surface, then the seichel becomes fully understood, fully grasped.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, if we're talking about something which is basically a muscle tzimtzum, right? Yes?
Yeah, but leave that alone.
I just want to know,
Yeah.
where is the concealment? Once the protein surface, the whole seichel goes away?
There's no concealment. the brightness and the impact of the Sechel is no longer with that power.
And that's the analog to tzimtzum.
That's right. That's right. When you talk about having a home, in contrast to not having a home, being homeless, that's powerful. You talk about having a home, having a table and chairs and beds and picture frames on the walls, then you don't sense the impact of having a home in that same strength and power. Although it's all part of it. I think I mentioned to you, they were traveling from Russia. I can't explain to you what that means. But very much we from Russia, we ran away, we snuck out of Russia, fugitives, the big criminals that we are. And we finally reached, after many years and a lot of difficult moments, we finally reached America. It was like a dream. During the journey, we were literally living out of suitcases. Whoever heard, whoever saw a dresser where you set out your clothes in the dresser, we lived out of suitcases. Eventually, we reached, in France, in Paris. Every family had a room, and we can kind of set itself up in some kind of a sense of comfort. This was richness. Kind of allowed you to put things away, not hold everything in your hand. But this is how we traveled for many years. We finally came to this country. I remember I was then 14 years old. And the first Shabbos, we came here Erev Shabbos. And Shabbos, the family was in a hotel, and I came to Crown Heights. And I was invited to a family for Friday night dinner. Invited, and I was assigned. I come into this home. I walk in, and there's a living room with a couch and an easy chair and some other table in the front of it. And some other things in this living room. From this living room, I'm going to the dining room, a separate room, a table with chairs. This is where you eat. This is where you sit. This is where you eat. And beyond that, there's a kitchen. This is where you cook. All of this layout that you sit and you eat and you cook in 3 different rooms is something new to me. I have not seen it before. And whatever else there was that kind of met my eye, and I observed and I realized what's going on. And I remember thinking to myself, as I'm walking through this is how Jews are supposed to live. This is how he perceives his life in this world. He is a welcome presence over here, and everything has to support his presence. What was in this thought? This is how he's supposed to live. A home is not a theoretical thing; it's a reality. And all the protein of the home have to be identified.